Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this webinar. Thank you guys for coming in on this Tuesday afternoon. I want to welcome you all and give people a chance to get situated, get your screens ready for a wonderful session that we have for you today. My name is Trey Calvin. I'm the Communications Director, and I want to thank you for joining the Center for Applied Linguistics today for this 30-minute webinar in our Critical Conversations Research to Policy and Practice series. This year, our theme is Equity in Practice, centering multilingual learners. We are exploring what it means to take an asset-based approach when working with multilingual learners and how an equity perspective can and truly must guide local, state, and national policy across different educational settings. Today's webinar and topic is Digital Multi-Literacies Reframed. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to cal.org immediately after our event concludes. And an email will be coming to you with that recording if you've registered today. During this webinar, you have the opportunity to ask us questions. So we encourage you to use the Q&A box below in the black ribbon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will try to address as many questions as we can at the end of our brief 30-minute discussion today. Also, you may click on the chat button that's next to the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen at any time to chat with your colleagues or to provide us with your thoughts and comments. Note that we will only be checking the questions that you put in the Q&A box, but please feel free to use the chat at any time. Like, go ahead and tell us where you're calling in from. Try it out. Just a quick note, the Center for Applied Linguistics is providing this event as a public service. However, the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed solely belong to the persons expressing them and do not necessarily represent the views of the Center for Applied Linguistics. That's all that I have to say for today. Now I'd like to turn it over for your MC for today's event, Dr. Ester de Jong. Thank you for hosting us today. Ester, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Trey. It's a pleasure. And I am so honored to have Maria Cieslak with us today to talk about digital multiliteracies and how that is redefining what we mean by literacy. Maria, welcome. Just a little bio on Maria. She's trilingual in Polish, English, and Spanish. A former Nevada and Illinois educator and professional developer who has taught kindergarten through 8th grade as a bilingual ESL and general education teacher. She comes with rich experience to this discussion. In addition to her varied and extensive teaching and instructional coaching background of 20 plus years, Maria is nationally board certified in English as a new language ages 3 through 12. Prior to working for the Center for Applied Linguistics, Maria was a pre-K-12 project facilitator in the English Language Learner Division in Clark County School District, the 5th largest school district in the United States. Maria is currently the Professional Development Contact Manager for the Center for Applied Linguistics. Thank you so much for joining us today, Maria.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I love this topic.
Well, we are going to not only enjoy your passion today, but also your expertise and your knowledge about this particular topic, which is so important. And so since we only have 30 minutes, let's dive right in. So let's start maybe with kind of a really basic question. What do we mean by digital multiliteracies?
Okay. It's a simple question, you think, but it's I'm going to give it from the most basic. Right now, multiliteracies, we have to think about multimodal, right? So multimodal meaning making. We know that we can make sense through listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We can use our gestures and facial expressions, images, emojis. I have 3 books on the dialects of emojis. Love them, right? And the icons that we use to communicate meaning. So that is one way of thinking about multimodality. But now we have to think about multiliteracies. When we think about literacies, we think about textual literacies. And in the traditional sense, we mean books, magazines, newspaper, paper, right? But now we really have to think about digital literacies, which include different types of literacies. So we're thinking about, digital literacy is about locating, evaluating, and interpreting information found in digital sources like websites, smartphones, video games. We have information literacy, which is the ability to recognize information needed to locate and evaluate and use effectively. We have technological literacy. How do we use different devices? Believe it or not, it's unbelievable how doing Zoom, for example, on your phone has different features that are allowed and not allowed versus a desktop computer versus a laptop computer versus your iPad. And sometimes we don't realize what features are enabled until we have that experience ourselves. And then we have that visual literacy, which we know is so big in the 21st century, where we have to be able to understand and interpret the visual images, not only on the screen, but in print and in advertisements and all of those. And so there's just this big meshing that we have of all those multi-literacies in the digital world that we have to think about, because it also happens in the print world. And that became very evident during the pandemic.
It sure does. Wow. So it really is a very complex phenomenon. So literacy is no longer just reading and writing.
No, it is not. And when we think about the sciences, we even have ocean literacy, when we have climate literacy, and it's all about what do we know and how do we take those action steps to make a difference in the world, and how do we personalize it in our own communities with our own families, and how do we use it in the best way.
Yeah, that's quite a skill. So if you think about all of these multiple dimensions and move away from just what you call textual, right, literacy, so if you look ahead, in what ways has that understanding of literacy being so multifaceted, how is it changing not just the literacy as we talk about it today, but how does it reframe that in your mind for future literacy practices? What are some things that will be part of literacy instruction in the future?
Well, it's been going on now for 22 years, right? And so I was a teacher in the 20th century. I'm a teacher in the 21st century. Very different way that we were taught as teachers. And we quickly, at the turn of the century, had to learn some new techniques, and little by little keep adding to our teacher toolbox on how to do that. The one big thing that I see when I'm doing professional development with teachers is that they're missing a new lens, which is that ed tech framework lens. And so like I was very fortunate when I went into the 21st century that our district was very strong in using the TPAC framework as well as the SAMR model. And so I was well versed in how to think about technology as a substitution, think of it as an enhancement, think of it as transformational learning, but I didn't have time to do everything that I can right now. I can do a lot more things, right? I've grown a lot, but districts or schools that don't have that lens, that framework, are just really going into making it a mysterious thing. How do I use this technology, right? And so there's this one research study by Dunn and Valeni, or actually they came up with an article, Mentoring New Teachers Through Collaborative Coaching, Linking Teacher and Student Learning, from WestEd 2017, where they talk about the window into teaching. So where they say, well, if I can't do it, I don't know it, it's very mysterious. So this technology thing, very mysterious. If I can't do it, but I know it, it's only theoretical and I can't put it into practice. If I can do it, but don't know why it's working, it's also mysterious. And we want to hit that sweet spot where we know what we're doing and we can do it, and it's very intentional and deliberate. So that EdTech framework provides that intersection that we need, because we know very well our second language acquisition theories. We know we're using SIMA. We know we're using Mixed and Calc. We know that we're using conversational, different research that helps us to understand how discourse works with our multilingual learners. We know what works with dual language. And so this is just another slight little filter, I want to say, that we need to add on, not take off. It's just one more thing. I know it's one more thing, but that is the 21st century. There's always going to be one more thing. And in our profession, is all about, there is always one more thing.
It's yours, and hopefully in the end it will make what we do for our learners, more effective and engaging for them as well at the same time, right? It's like you said, it doesn't always have to be just an add-on, but if we can integrate it into our practices. Which gets me to my next question, Maria.
Sure.
You just mentioned the educational technologies framework, and that you kind of need to connect that with kind of English language learner frameworks, right? In terms of what we know, and thinking about our theme, there's then also an equity lens that we put on top of that. So as you're thinking about that intersection, what are some key insights from your experience and the research on multilingual learners and the digital multiliteracies that we might want to pay attention to?
One big thing is that we have multilingual learners. The research on multilingual learners and digital literacies is that we have, and I myself am multilingual, as you have mentioned earlier, is that we have digital preferences and we have digital styles. So some of us are avoiders, some of us are minimalists, some of us are enthusiastic adopters, and we've also seen that with the teacher side, but we know for sure that there are preferences. And because of that, we have to be able to differentiate, just like we do with our learning styles, who are kinesthetic and auditory and visual. This is that new lens, again, another way to really truly understand who our multilingual learners are, right? Because we do want to build that background and know where they're coming from, and we're adding to their repertoire. It's a great way to express ourselves. It's a new way to express ourselves. It's very transformational to be able to sit in a classroom and talk to 5 different people who speak totally different languages, all on one iPad, or and I could do that on a spreadsheet, believe it or not, because I can code Google language codes. And so instead of 5 different devices on one device, I can have all those languages without leaving the page. And so we can do spectacular things, but we need teachers to have those coaches to know how to do that and take a moment to breathe and do it.
Yeah.
And so we know that from the research that, a majority of our teachers are saying that they made a lot of growth in video conference tools. They know how to used it, some of the products that have been around in like the Google Classroom, for example. The one research by the Pew Institute that said that teachers, it's all about differentiating. They don't know how, or the research from EdWeek survey was talking about that teachers don't know how to differentiate. For when we have newcomers, when we have specific languages that we can't use Google Translate or Microsoft Translate, how do we help our students who are facing challenges with early literacy or emergent literacies in their home language? And so they need support, and they're asking for support. And and some states have been doing some marvelous things throughout this whole 2 decades, I should say, not just over here during the pandemic, but we have to really celebrate and talk about all those different victory narratives of all the school districts that, how you've come, there is a rainbow at the end, right, of the tunnel. There's a bit of sunshine coming through, that we have gone so far, and we have so much more to do, because now COVID has brought us this new possibilities that weren't thought of. Oh, we can't do it. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Very possible.
So one of the things that when we were talking earlier, a little bit before this webinar, you were saying that adult learners also have had to make a big shift in terms of technologies. Can you talk a little bit about it? We've talked a little bit about K through 12, but can you talk a little bit about kind of the adult population and their getting used to a very different world as well?
It is very different, not only for our teachers, but also for our families, because they never had that experience in school, perhaps. And I just was with my friend on a parent engagement workshop that was all virtual. Their math night was virtual. And their patience on, I'm on my phone, and the teachers explaining how, because they were assuming that some teachers were, or the parents were at home on a device. on their Chromebooks or their laptops, but some people were on their phones. And how do you do that? And so the teachers were patient, the parents were patient, they all got in, they were doing all these marvelous, each grade level had their own math literacy night. Some were doing Kahoot. Some teachers were using their Elmos and actually their document camera and writing things on, like, as you know, like in the classroom. And so the parents are seeing all the variety of experiences that their children are having right now that is so rich. But they also need support. And that's the big thing in the research as well, as that parents and adults are very concerned, including teachers, about the cost of the broadband, having the dead zones. I myself in Las Vegas live in a dead zone for internet. And so, and the costs are huge to do it yourself. And so even though we might have the device, we might not have that connectivity with that broadband. And so we're dealing as a community, how do we bring that support? Because now with the remote learning and the hybrid learning and the pause to learning, right? Now we have a new concept. How do we pause? We can still keep on going. How do we keep that moving along with the infrastructure that's currently there that we weren't prepared for globally? And when we're thinking about our multilingual students, they're coming in from other places. The United Nations did a children's report just a year ago, and they were talking about the digital canyon, not even a digital divide. It's so here in the United States, it might be the digital divide or the digital gap. In other places, it's 100 times worse. But they're coming here ready to learn new techniques, learn new literacies, and we're here to guide them and have a fabulous time doing it, because teaching is fun.
Teaching is fun. One of the things that I think you were hinting at, but maybe is worth spending a little bit of time with, is that it does kind of change the job that we have as teachers and as administrators, right? If we try to support our teachers across the district and our students and our parents, what are some things that we may have to do differently?
What do we do differently? A lot of things. So we're on question number 3, is that right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, we're on question 3. Okay, so here's a couple of thoughts. And I know some people are asking for me to put in a couple of links, and I will do that momentarily. Okay, but the one thing that we have to think about is scaling up the personalized learning, not only for our students, our multilingual students, but also for the teachers. And so it can't be a one-size-fits-all type of professional development experience for our teachers that we had in the 20th century, or even in the beginning of the 21st century, right? Because in the beginning, all teachers were learning how to do the digital products, right? The digital, how we're going to manipulate. And there was only one model here or there, but now we have so many that are customized, and each community has their own strengths and their own values and their own way of teaching and learning. And because of that, we have to think about not only workshops, but coaches and digital coaches that are multilingual, with a multilingual learner focus. And so, for example, Nevada, they came up with, because of the pandemic, Nevada, we were always strong with digital technology, because our state initiatives are STEM always. And so we're preparing our multilingual learners to enter the STEM fields, not only here in Nevada, but in the United States and globally. And so because of the pandemic, with the Ester money, they created digital ambassadors, permanent positions, not temporary, very important, with teachers coming in to do the digital ambassadors are creating webinars, podcasts, coaching, one-on-one, small group, visiting schools, visiting districts, giving that support all the time, and it's not going to go away. The other thing, so scaling up the professional development, creating new possibilities. The other part, and the mentoring, that was the other big thing, is about maybe I need to have 24 hours of mentoring instead of 24 hours of workshops.
Mhm,
Oh, okay.
mhm.
The other way is leveraging the power of networks. And that has been crucial. You know, the research does state that parents and families and all of us we were very isolated, and having that collaboration through our cell phones, texting, the social media, that connectivity was very strong. So before we had our teacher networking with conferences, very expensive. Now we have new possibilities. We can keep connecting and networking with people from all over the world. I went to the Cieslak conference. We connected with teachers from Pakistan who are having the same concerns and challenges that we are over here, but we're giving insights on how to work with low tech, no tech, and high tech challenges in our classrooms at pre-K all the way through college and adulthood as well. And so that network and collaboration, not only within our district, but within collaborating with Google. They have professional development specialists that will come in and to do workshops. Microsoft does the same thing. Nearpod, all the companies offer these services for free, even Apple. Some are for paid, but most of them are free. So we need to take advantage of networking outside of our worlds, especially with technology companies. The third thing is bringing that equity to learning through technology use, which we talked about, expanding that equity with the digital skills. So that means parents need to, have access to workshops and family engagement nights where we can sit and learn how to do Desmos. How do I turn that language function on so I could support my child at home? Because the homework now is maybe still paper, but sometimes it's on the Google Classroom or it's digital resources, and the parents are there to support with the content, but they need a little bit of support with that digital technology, and then they can do the rest, right? But so we need to find ways that we can help our multilingual parents learn how to navigate the digital world as well, so they can stay informed. Because talking points is not the only way to communicate. The Microsoft Google and Google Translate is not the only way. So let's be all solution oriented. That's the whole thing about being, having solutions, and storytelling is the best way. So why not Zoom?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're mentioning it from earlier also, that so in addition to all of these policies that we need to put in place around technologies, there's also that prerequisite, right? As we connect home and school through technology in different ways, that we ensure that the connectivity is there, that we ensure that access to equipment is there, and that access to like affordable equipment is there, right?
Affordable, that's really big.
Absolutely. Well, Maria, thank you so much for this piece. I think there are lots of questions that I've seen in the chat kind of popping up. Trey, I'm going to hand it over to you since you've been monitoring these questions, and see which ones we have. About 8 minutes left that we can ask Maria to respond to. I doubted that we can get to all of them, but maybe we can use some of the highlights.
There can't be a lot of questions on digital equity and reframing. That can't be so.
I see there's a lot of questions in the chat. It's a lot. If you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, that would be great too. That helps us keep track of it and we can all see it. I'm going to start with this one. And this way I can also see who's asking.
Sure.
Here's a question from the chat box. How would you direct someone to start learning to get better at digital education? Could you tell someone how to become, be a coach? I'm trying to interpret a little bit here, but, just getting started, what would you suggest to someone?
Okay. Google is a big product everywhere, right? It's free. Google is free. And there is a Google University. You can pay for Google University, but anybody on the web, they have very short tutorials, how to create a document, how to create a spreadsheet, how to use video, how to put the translation device. And so all of that is online already. But in terms of parents and schools, really reach out to your particular school and district, because those are free classes. And I know whenever I was doing my parent engagement workshops, teachers always came to my workshops because they wanted to learn at the same information that I was sharing with my multilingual families too. And we learned together as a community. And so it's not just for parents and not just for teachers. I invited my students as well. So students, families, and teachers all working together at those workshops. And so I would reach out to your technology department because there's always professional development, continuing learning type of courses, conferences. Check your district or your state for technology conferences online. There's also free conferences for teachers that are digital support. Some of them are called unconferences. Those are my favorite. If you've never done a unconference, you should definitely do that. An unconference is where, for example, I do this a lot in science. So there's a list of speakers and you come and join whatever topic you want, whether it's 9 o'clock, 9:30, 12 o'clock. And so it's just one Zoom link and you just join the conversation at any time. So it's kind of fun to do. I hope I answered. Yeah, definitely. I would reach out to the school and the district. The teachers unions also have some wonderful workshops on digital technology, and specific ones to help to go jump up the salary scale. So why not do? That's what I did. I have 2 endorsements in computer applications because of that.
Very nice.
I think that answers the question very well. And I want to highlight Christine's comment, who said the Google resources are great. She's echoing what you're saying, that there's even a certification program for educators for those that are interested, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question. You mentioned to contact your, say your media department or the person that at your school or institution that works on those sorts of issues. For those that might not have that resource readily disposable, how would you go about creating a plan? Let's say you're bootstrapping it a little bit. What would maybe be the first thing to do? Questions to ask, people to be involved in this plan?
Okay. You could also, like here in the United States, the governors also made a each state has their own education agency, and they came up with a tech plan and so I would definitely reach out to your state local education agencies to see what questions they have and the technology plans, and it should be on the website, the district website also. If it's a little bit hard to find, go to your multilingual learner department and have them ask. And that's the biggest thing, again, when we're talking about scaling up professional development, is that we can no longer work in silos. We must be cross-disciplinary, and it's not only like, so we've been the last decade or so learning about content and language together. Well, now it's content, language, and technology. So it's just one more filter that we have to add on, and be very determined. Let me see. I don't have a first place to start.
Yeah. I think that's a doing a quick Google search on a Department of Education state roadmap for digital equity would be a good start. Like you were saying, I found a lot of hits just doing that quick search, but also, state departments for broadband access will have different plans that many of them are starting to implement now based on just this federal legislation that was signed just last year to expand that funding to states. So if it's not at the Department of Education level, maybe it's at the
I know what other countries, like I just came from the Cieslak conference, International Cieslak conference in Pennsylvania, a wonderful event, because the discussion was also there about what do we do with the broadband issue. And so other countries, I know they're using podcasts because radio is a different frequency and it's free. And so certain apps also, in Asia, for example, or Central Asia or Africa, also use WhatsApp, and they've been using Viber which is very similar to WhatsApp. So understanding where our multilingual learner families are coming from, because their apps might be similar to what we're using or might be a little bit different. And they're communicating more through their phones, perhaps, instead of devices. And so it's another complexity that we're bringing in to this. But what's great about our brains are that we're very flexible, and we're constantly lifelong learners. And so we have this capacity for an unlimited amount of space in our minds just to keep on growing. New possibilities.
Super. All right, Trey, take it away.
We are at 4:30. I think we've hit our mark. This is our 30-minute discussion. Doesn't it go by fast?
It sure
It does.
It's all the time that we have today. I want to thank our wonderful speaker, Maria Cieslak, for sharing her insight. Thank you, Maria. It's wonderful to work with you, and I know our audience was benefited by your insights today. We also want to thank Esther, our wonderful moderator, for her time today and her dedication to the Center for Applied Linguistics, being on our board of directors. In addition, I want to thank the Center for Applied Linguistics for hosting our webinar today and this series. And finally, I'd like to thank you, our audience members, for taking some time out of your busy day to ask us questions, to make comments on our insights, and also to provide the enthusiasm that carries us through each day. We want to encourage you to share what you learned today with your colleagues, and to that end, we will be sending a recording of this webinar in a follow-up email, as well as additional resources that were mentioned during this webinar. We invite you to join our next webinar in this series, which is going to be on Tuesday, May 10th at 4 p.m. It is entitled Plain Language. We'll be talking about plain language then, and you will be receiving an email in the coming week to register for that as an invitation. So again, thank you so much. These resources and webinars can be found at cal.org, www.cal.org. Thank you, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.